All right, let's take a look at section 2.2, the multiplication property of equality. And not sure, there we go. So in the last section, we solved problems like this. 3x plus 2 is equal to 17. You would subtract 2, you get 3x is equal to 15. The problem with the methods that we learned in the last section is it didn't tell us how to deal with this if I have more than one x. Remember, when we're solving, we need x by itself. There's no 3 involved. So what we're going to talk about in this section is what's called the multiplication property of equality. The coefficient of x is 3, not 1, and so what we're going to do is talk about if we divide both sides by the same thing, or if we multiply both sides by the same thing, we end up with, that's legal mathematically speaking. Let's suppose we have 15 times x is equal to 75. Notice we have this number here, which we need to get rid of. So the opposite of multiply is divide. And remember, whenever you solve, you always do the opposite. Whatever this is doing, you do the opposite of it. And 15 goes into 75 probably 5 times. Let me double check. 25, yes, 5 times. And speaking of, I should probably grab a calculator just in case. Okay. So, same thing with this one. We have 8 times x. So to get the x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 8. Now, something that I want to mention, this is really important. Do not give me a decimal. 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 I do not accept decimal answers unless the original problem has a decimal in it. There's no decimal in the original problem, so I do not want a decimal. In fact, I want an improper fraction, not even a mixed number. So what you're going to do is you are going to simplify this fraction. And 4 goes into 25 times, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So this is how I want your answer. No decimals, and I do not want a mixed number. If you have a scientific calculator, highly recommend having a scientific calculator, but if not, you can download a fraction calculator. There are hundreds of them. Just search for fraction calculator. There are a whole bunch. Don't buy one, just get a free one. But if you, most people that buy a scientific calculator use the fraction button, which looks like this. And so when you would type this in, it can actually simplify it for you. So you would type in -20, and then the fraction button. It's a fraction button, and then the 8, and push enter or equals, and it will give you, it would actually give you -2, and then it'll do this, 1 half. It'll look like this. So you want to convert this to a improper fraction, and so what you're going to do, I think it's push the second or the shift button, either second or shift, push the ABC button again, and it should toggle back and forth between an improper fraction and a mixed number. This one has a decimal in the original problem, so having a decimal in the original problem means we are allowed to have a decimal in the answer. So we're just going to take our calculator, 0.04, and divide it, 0.7, and we end up with -7.2. So notice a decimal is perfectly allowed in this problem because we started out with a decimal. All right, now notice this is x divided by 4. The opposite of divide is multiply. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides by 4, and we get our 4's cancel out. So we get an x, that's a funny looking x, is equal to negative 24. This is multiply. Now, this is something that gives students trouble. They automatically think that you're going to divide by a fraction, but if you recall from fractions, which you probably don't because it's been how many years since you've actually had to do a fraction, when you divide fractions, you actually multiply by the reciprocal. So negative 12 divided by negative 2/3. Remember the keep, change, flip? That's equivalent to multiplying by negative 3/2. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to skip this step and go straight to this step. We're going to multiply both sides by negative 3/2. Multiply both sides by negative 3/2, which will cancel out this side, and I get t. Now, here is something that is really helpful to know if you have to multiply a whole number times a fraction. It's super easy to do in your head. It's actually much faster to do it in your head than it is to punch it into a calculator, because what you do is you divide by the bottom, multiply the top. Divide by the bottom, multiply the top. Divide by the bottom, multiply the top. What would that that would look like it if we were to actually show our work? Again, we would cancel and then we would multiply. So we're just doing this in our head as opposed to writing it out. Be careful with this one. This is a negative p. We do have to divide by negative 1 because our answer has to have a positive, not a negative. Okay, again, we have two different variables. We have to combine like terms before we can do anything else. So 4 subtract 9 will give me a negative 5r is equal to 20. We're going to divide by negative 5, and we get negative 4. And there you go.